The revelation. Olivia Reed adjusted her camera lens, focusing on the couple seated at the outdoor cafe across the street. The woman, tall, elegant, with honey blonde hair cascading down her back, laughed at something her companion said, her hand casually resting on his arm. Olivia snapped several photos in quick succession, each click of the shutter feeling like a betrayal. Not of the woman, but of herself. This wasn't what Olivia had imagined doing with her psychology degree and natural talent for reading people. Being a private investigator paid the bills, but documenting infidelity left a bitter taste in her mouth. Especially this case. Her phone buzzed. "Did you get anything?" The voice on the other end was deep, controlled, but Olivia detected the underlying tension. "Mr. Blackwood, I told you I'd call when I had conclusive evidence." She kept her voice professional. Despite the flutter in her stomach whenever she spoke to Nathaniel Blackwood, the millionaire tech entrepreneur who'd hired her 3 weeks ago. "It's been nearly a month, Ms. Reed. Forgive me if I'm getting impatient." Olivia sighed, watching as the woman, Vanessa Porter, Nathaniel's fiancée, leaned forward to whisper something to the mystery man. "These things take time. If you want proof that will hold up in court for your prenup—" "I want the truth," he interrupted. "Whatever it is." The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. Most clients who hired her to investigate their partners already knew the truth. They just wanted documentation for divorce proceedings or prenuptial enforcement. Nathaniel Blackwood seemed genuinely uncertain. "I'll call you tonight," Olivia promised before ending the call. She returned her attention to Vanessa and her companion. The man's face was partially obscured, but something about his profile seemed oddly familiar. Olivia zoomed in with her camera and her breath caught. The world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. The man with Vanessa was Thomas Harrington, Olivia's former fiancé. The same man who had left her standing alone at the altar 2 years ago. Olivia's hands trembled as she lowered the camera. This couldn't be coincidence. Thomas working with or dating the fiancé of her current client? The mathematical probability was astronomical. Her phone buzzed again with a text from her assistant, Zoe. "Found something on BW Holdings you need to see. Office ASAP." Olivia gathered her equipment, her mind racing. BW Holdings was Nathaniel Blackwood's company, the one he'd built from nothing into a tech empire worth billions. What had Zoe discovered? At her small downtown office, Zoe was waiting, dark curls piled atop her head, excitement evident in her expressive eyes. "You won't believe this," Zoe said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Remember how you said Blackwood seemed familiar when you took this case? I dug into his background." Olivia flipped through the documents, her confusion growing. "What am I looking at?" "Property records, mostly. But look at this one." Zoe pointed to a deed from 15 years ago. "Blackwood purchased the entire apartment complex where your parents lived." The room seemed to spin. "That's impossible. My parents' building was owned by some faceless corporation. A shell company for Blackwood Enterprises. And here's the kicker." Zoe pulled out another document. "He's been paying for your father's medical care anonymously." Olivia sank into her chair. Her father's miraculous acceptance into an experimental treatment program for his Parkinson's disease 5 years ago. The reduced rent on her parents' apartment before that. All Nathaniel Blackwood? "There's more," Zoe continued. "I found an old article about a scholarship program he funded at your university. The same year you received that anonymous full ride." Memories flooded back. The mysterious scholarship that had saved her from crushing student debt. The anonymous donor who had changed her life. All this time it had been Nathaniel Blackwood? The question wasn't just why Vanessa Porter was meeting with Thomas Harrington. The real question was, why had Nathaniel Blackwood hired her specifically? And why had he been silently influencing her life for years? As if summoned by her thoughts, her phone lit up with his name. "Ms. Reed," his voice came through, more urgent than before. "We need to meet. Tonight." Olivia stared at the photo on her desk, Vanessa and Thomas, heads bent together in conspiracy, and made a decision. "Yes," she replied. "I think we do. Retry UB Part 2 to 5 Edit Part 2. Tangled Webs." The Everett Hotel lobby gleamed with old-world opulence, crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and the quiet hum of wealth. Olivia felt underdressed in her practical blazer and jeans as she approached the private lounge where Nathaniel Blackwood awaited. He stood when she entered, his tall frame silhouetted against floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. At 42, Nathaniel possessed the kind of confidence that came from building something substantial from nothing. His dark hair was threaded with silver at the temples, and fine lines around his eyes suggested he smiled more than his serious public persona indicated. "Miss Reed," he extended his hand. "Thank you for coming." His grip was warm, firm, and triggered an unexpected jolt of electricity that Olivia immediately suppressed. "I have questions, Mr. Blackwood," she said, sliding into the leather chair opposite him. "Starting with why you've been anonymously funding my father's medical care for years." If he was surprised by her directness, he didn't show it. Instead, something like relief crossed his features. "You found out." He nodded slowly. "I wondered when you would." "I'm a detective. It's what I do." She placed the folder of documents between them. "What I can't figure out is why. Did you know my parents? Is this some kind of guilt payment?" Nathaniel's expression darkened. "Not guilt, gratitude." He hesitated, then continued. "Your father saved my life, Olivia. Literally." The use of her first name caught her off guard. "What are you talking about?" 15 years ago, I was nobody. Just a programmer with big ideas and bigger debts. I was living in that same apartment building, working 18-hour days, barely sleeping. He looked down at his hands. One night, I fell asleep while cooking. The fire spread quickly. Recognition dawned. "The fire on the 5th floor," Olivia whispered. "Dad always talked about it. Daniel Reed broke down my door when I didn't respond to the alarms. Carried me out while the ceiling collapsed behind him." Nathaniel's voice grew rough. He risked his life for a stranger. Memories flooded back. Her father coming home smelling of smoke, refusing to go to the hospital despite her mother's pleas, insisting he was fine. He'd never mentioned saving anyone. "He didn't know who I was then," Nathaniel continued. "No one did. But 6 months later, my first software patent sold for $8 million. When I learned your father had been injured during the rescue, damage that would eventually contribute to his early-onset Parkinson's, I vowed to take care of him. Of your family." Olivia's throat tightened. "So the scholarship? The rent reduction?" "Small gestures of thanks," he said simply. "Your father gave me a future. I wanted to ensure his daughter had one too." The revelation left Olivia reeling, but professional instinct kept her focused. "And Vanessa? Why hire me specifically to investigate her?" Something flickered in Nathaniel's eyes, hesitation, perhaps even embarrassment. "Because I trust you. Because your background in psychology gives you insight others lack." He paused. "And because I knew you'd recognize Thomas Harrington." Olivia stiffened. "You knew about Thomas and me? I've kept tabs on your family over the years. When I learned about your broken engagement, I did some digging." His jaw tightened. "Harrington approached Vanessa 3 months ago with a business proposal." "Too coincidental. I suspected they were targeting my company." "Corporate espionage," Olivia murmured. "Using your fiancé to access proprietary information." "Or worse." Nathaniel leaned forward. 2 weeks ago, I discovered someone attempting to transfer patents from my company to a shell corporation. The digital trail led back to my home network, Vanessa's computer. The pieces began falling into place. "So you didn't suspect infidelity. You suspected theft." "Both, actually." His expression hardened. The timing of their relationship seemed calculated. Vanessa insisted she met Thomas at a charity gala in February, but I found earlier communications. Olivia processed this information, her detective's mind working overtime. "If you already knew all this, why hire me?" "Because I needed proof from someone they wouldn't suspect. Someone with personal motivation to uncover the truth." His gaze held hers. "I knew Thomas hurt you. I thought you deserved a chance at revenge." She interrupted, a bitter edge to her voice. "Justice," he corrected. "For both of us." Before Olivia could respond, her phone buzzed with an incoming text from Zoe. "Emergency. Facial recognition flagged TH entering BW headquarters with executive access card 10 mins ago." Olivia showed Nathaniel the message, watching his face drain of color. That's impossible. The building's locked down after hours except for... He stopped abruptly, realization dawning. Except for my personal code. Vanessa has it. Olivia was already on her feet. We need to go, now. As they rushed from the hotel, the complicated threads connecting their lives pulled tighter. Whatever game Thomas and Vanessa were playing, it was reaching its endgame tonight. And Olivia found herself caught between seeking justice and confronting the past she'd tried so hard to forget. Hidden truths. The security desk at Blackwood Enterprises stood empty, unusual for a building that housed proprietary technology worth billions. Nathaniel's access card slid through the reader with a soft beep, granting them entry to the gleaming lobby. Something's wrong, he muttered, scanning the space. Security protocols should have triggered with an unauthorized entry. Olivia moved toward the security monitors, her investigator's instincts on high alert. Camera feed's been looped, she noted, pointing to the timestamp jumping backward every 30 seconds. Professional job. The server room, Nathaniel said, already striding toward the elevators. 15th floor. Whatever they're after is there. The elevator ride was tense, Nathaniel's body radiating controlled fury beside her. Olivia found herself studying his profile, the determined set of his jaw, the intensity in his eyes. She'd investigated many wealthy clients, most of whom viewed people as pawns. Nathaniel seemed different. Why didn't you just confront Vanessa? She asked. With your resources, you could have had her investigated discreetly. His gaze remained fixed on the climbing floor numbers. Because I needed to understand why. 3 years together, and suddenly this betrayal? He glanced at her. You understand that need, don't you? With Thomas? The question struck too close to home. 2 years later, and Olivia still woke some nights wondering what she'd missed, what signs she'd ignored. Sometimes there is no why, she said quietly. Some people just take what they want without regard for who they hurt. The elevator doors opened to a darkened hallway. They moved silently toward a soft glow emanating from the server room at the corridor's end. Voices drifted out. Vanessa's cultured tones and Thomas's familiar cadence sending an unwelcome shiver down Olivia's spine. Transfer complete in 3 minutes, Thomas was saying. Once it's in the offshore account, they can't trace it. And the failsafe? Vanessa asked, already in place. If anything goes wrong, all evidence points to Nathaniel selling the patents himself. Classic embezzlement. Nathaniel's hand tightened on Olivia's arm, his expression darkening. She placed a warning finger to her lips, then pointed to her phone. Understanding, he nodded as she began recording the conversation. What about your ex? Vanessa's voice dripped with disdain. Nathaniel hiring her complicated things. Thomas laughed. That same dismissive laugh Olivia remembered from arguments past. Olivia, she's predictable. Always believing the best in people despite evidence to the contrary. That's why she was so easy to manipulate before. The casual cruelty stung, but Olivia maintained her composure, focusing on gathering evidence. Besides, Thomas continued, she has no idea who she's really working for. Vanessa's voice lowered. Does Nathaniel suspect anything about his father's involvement? Beside her, Nathaniel went rigid. Richard Blackwood covered his tracks well, Thomas replied. As far as his son knows, the old man died leaving nothing but debts. He has no idea his father's technology formed the foundation of everything Blackwood Enterprises became. And soon it will all belong to its rightful owners, Vanessa said smugly. Poetic justice, really. Something dangerous flickered in Nathaniel's eyes. Before Olivia could stop him, he pushed open the door, startling both conspirators. I'd like to hear more about this poetic justice, he said coldly. Thomas recovered quickly, his handsome face arranging itself into a mask of surprise that Olivia recognized all too well. Nathaniel, we were just stealing from me, Nathaniel finished. While planning to frame me? I heard. Vanessa stepped forward, her expression calculating. Darling, you don't understand. Your father stole everything from Thomas's family. We're simply reclaiming what's ours. Olivia emerged from behind Nathaniel and watched Thomas's expression shift from confidence to wary recognition. Olivia, he said, recovering quickly. This is a surprise. Hello, Thomas. She kept her voice level despite the thundering of her heart. "Still abandoning people at altars, or have you moved on to corporate theft exclusively?" Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "You two know each other." "We were engaged," Olivia explained, holding up her phone. "And I've just recorded your entire conversation. The police are on their way." Thomas's face hardened. "You're bluffing, am I?" Olivia raised an eyebrow. "You always did underestimate me." Vanessa suddenly lunged for a nearby computer, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Initiating server wipe," she announced triumphantly. "Good luck proving anything without data." Nathaniel moved with surprising speed, reaching past her to enter an override code. "Company protocols, Vanessa. Emergency shutdown requires biometric confirmation." He pressed his thumb to a scanner, and the screens went dark. "Evidence preserved." Thomas's composure finally cracked. "You don't understand what you're protecting, Blackwood. Your precious company was built on stolen ideas. Your father took everything from my family." "What are you talking about?" Nathaniel demanded. "Richard Blackwood and my father were research partners 20 years ago," Thomas spat. "They developed the core algorithm together. Then your father filed the patent alone while my father was hospitalized. He died penniless while the Blackwoods prospered." The revelation hung in the air as security personnel finally arrived, surrounding Thomas and Vanessa. As they were led away, Olivia noticed Nathaniel's troubled expression. "Do you believe him?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," he admitted. "My father and I were estranged. He was a brilliant man, but deeply flawed. The truth could be anywhere between Thomas's version and what I believed." Olivia hesitated, then made a decision. "I'll help you find out the real story, if you want." Their eyes met, a moment of understanding passing between them. Both had been seeking answers about betrayals from their past. Perhaps they could find them together. Breaking point. 3 days after the confrontation at Blackwood Enterprises, Olivia sat cross-legged on her living room floor, surrounded by documents. Financial records, old patents, photographs, and newspaper clippings created a paper trail spanning 2 decades. The story they told was complicated, messy, and heartbreaking. The doorbell rang precisely at 7. Nathaniel stood on her porch, looking less like a billionaire and more like a man who hadn't slept properly in days. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his usually immaculate suit was slightly rumpled. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. "I found something." He followed her to the living room, taking in the organized chaos with a raised eyebrow. "You've been busy." "I'm thorough." She handed him a cup of coffee. "Especially when things don't add up." "And they don't?" He settled onto her sofa, looking strangely at home among her mismatched furniture and overflowing bookshelves. "Not entirely." Olivia sat opposite him, gathering several key documents. "I traced the original patent applications. Thomas wasn't lying about the partnership. Your father and Gregory Harrington were research partners at MIT. Nathaniel's expression remained carefully neutral. "Go on?" They co-developed the algorithm that eventually became Blackwood's core technology. But, she emphasized, the split wasn't as clear-cut as Thomas claims. There were 2 patents filed. Your father filed for the security applications, Gregory for the consumer applications. 2 separate patents, Nathaniel murmured. "That changes things. It gets more complicated." Olivia passed him a hospital record. Gregory Harrington wasn't just hospitalized, he was institutionalized. Paranoid schizophrenia with delusions that people were stealing his thoughts. Nathaniel reviewed the document, his brow furrowing. "My father never mentioned any of this. According to these financial records, your father continued depositing 40% of all patent royalties into a trust for the Harrington family." She handed him bank statements. "He was honoring their partnership. Then why did Thomas believe we stole everything?" Nathaniel looked genuinely confused. Olivia hesitated. "Because your father made one critical mistake. He never told them about the trust." The revelation hung between them as Nathaniel processed its implications. "So while the Harringtons struggled financially, millions accumulated in a trust they knew nothing about," Olivia finished. "The trust was set to release funds on Thomas's 30th birthday, just 6 months from now." Nathaniel set down the documents, rubbing his temples. "My father's misguided attempt at protection. Gregory was ill. Perhaps he thought the family couldn't handle the money. Or perhaps he couldn't face them after Gregory's breakdown, Olivia suggested gently. Guilt can make people do strange things. The weight of understanding settled between them. Two families connected by creation and destruction. Secrets and misunderstandings spanning generations. I have a confession, Nathaniel said suddenly. The night we met at my office when you applied for the investigator position, it wasn't coincidence. I engineered it. Olivia stilled. What do you mean? I'd been following your career. When I learned you'd opened your own agency, I made sure my case came to you. His gaze held hers. I wanted to meet the woman my father saved, to see if you were as remarkable as your reputation suggested. And was I? The question slipped out before she could stop it. More so. His voice softened. You were brilliant, ethical, and completely unimpressed by my wealth. It was refreshing. Heat crept up Olivia's neck, but professional instinct kept her focused. So when you hired me to investigate Vanessa, New Beginnings' rain lashed against the windows of Nathaniel's beachfront home as thunder rumbled across the darkening sky. Inside, the tension was equally electric as Thomas Harrington paced the living room, a manila envelope clutched in his hands. This could all be fabricated, he said, though doubt had begun creeping into his voice. More Blackwood manipulation. Olivia watched from the doorway, maintaining her distance but ready to intervene if necessary. Nathaniel sat calmly across from his accuser, his composure remarkable given the circumstances. The trust exists, Thomas, Nathaniel said quietly. $17 million accumulated over 20 years. Legally yours in 6 months, Thomas laughed bitterly. While my mother worked 2 jobs to put me through college? While my family struggled? He slammed the documents down. Your father let us believe we had nothing. My father made mistakes, Nathaniel acknowledged. Terrible ones. He should have told your family about the trust, about the continuing partnership. He leaned forward. But he didn't steal from Gregory Harrington. They created together, and my father honored that, even if he couldn't face the consequences of his other choices. Lightning illuminated the room, casting harsh shadows across Thomas's conflicted features. Olivia recognized the look, the same expression he'd worn when confronted with uncomfortable truths during their relationship. Thomas had always struggled with realities that contradicted his chosen narrative. Even if I believe you, Thomas said finally, it doesn't erase 20 years of hardship. No, Nathaniel agreed. It doesn't. Nothing can. He reached for a leather portfolio on the coffee table. Which is why I'm prepared to offer something else. Olivia stepped forward, curious. This wasn't part of their discussion. Nathaniel removed a document and slid it across to Thomas. A position on Blackwood's board. Director of Innovation, the division that grew from your father's original work. Full creative control and appropriate recognition of Gregory Harrington's contributions to the company's foundation. Thomas stared at the offer, clearly stunned. Why would you do this? After what Vanessa and I tried to do? Because our father's partnership created something extraordinary, Nathaniel said simply. Perhaps it's time for the next generation to rebuild what secrecy destroyed. The room fell silent except for the drumming of rain. Thomas looked between the offer and Olivia, his expression unreadable. You knew, didn't you? He finally said to her. About the trust? Before all this? Olivia shook her head. I discovered it during my investigation. Just like I discovered why you left me at the altar 2 years ago. Thomas had the grace to look ashamed. Olivia, you thought my connection to the Blackwoods would give you access, she continued, her voice steady despite the old pain. When you learned I knew nothing about Nathaniel or his company, I became useless to your plan. It wasn't like that. Thomas protested weakly. It was exactly like that, Olivia countered. The difference is now I can thank you for walking away. Some betrayals are disguised blessings. Her gaze briefly met Nathaniel's, and the warmth she found there confirmed her words. Thomas noticed the exchange, understanding dawning. So that's how it is. That's irrelevant to the offer on the table, Nathaniel said professionally. This is about honoring our father's legacy, the partnership they began. The choice is yours. After what seemed an eternity, Thomas placed the document back on the table. I need time to think, to verify independently. Take whatever time you need, Nathaniel agreed. The offer stands. As Thomas prepared to leave, he paused beside Olivia. For what it's worth, I am sorry. Not just for the recent deception, but for how I hurt you before. Olivia studied the man she'd once planned to marry, feeling nothing but a distant sadness for what could have been. Some apologies come too late, Thomas, but I wish you well. After Thomas departed, silence settled over the house, broken only by the gradually receding storm. Olivia moved to the wall of windows overlooking the turbulent ocean, watching as moonlight began breaking through dissipating clouds. That was generous, she said when Nathaniel joined her, offering him a place in your company. It was practical, he corrected. Thomas is brilliant like his father. That brilliance should build something, not destroy it. He hesitated. Besides, I understand something now that I didn't before. What's that? How destructive secrets can be. My father's silence cost two families decades of peace. His gaze met hers in the window's reflection. I don't want to repeat his mistakes. Olivia turned to face him, suddenly aware of how close they stood. Is that why you told me the truth about hiring me? About following my career? Partly, he admitted. But mostly because I've come to care for you, Olivia. More than I expected. More than is probably wise given everything that's happened. She smiled softly. Caring is rarely wise. That's what makes it valuable. His hand reached up, hesitantly brushing a strand of hair from her face. Where do we go from here? Forward, she said simply. One step at a time. 6 months later, Olivia stood in the gallery of Blackwood Foundation's new community arts center, surveying the transformation. What had once been an abandoned warehouse was now a vibrant space filled with light, creativity, and possibility. The Reed Wing is nearly complete, Nathaniel said, joining her with architectural plans in hand. Your father approves of the adaptive technology installations, Olivia smiled, thinking of her father's delight when they'd finally told him the truth about the mysterious benefactor who'd been supporting his medical care for years. The friendship that had developed between Daniel Reed and Nathaniel over the past months had been unexpected but deeply heartwarming. Dad's more excited about teaching photography. To the seniors program, she said. He says it keeps his hands steady. Nathaniel's arm slipped around her waist naturally, comfortably. Like father, like daughter, always helping others see the world more clearly. Across the gallery, Thomas was guiding a group of technology students through an interactive exhibit showcasing the evolution of the algorithm his father and Richard Blackwood had created together. The healing wasn't complete, might never be, but it had begun. Did you ever imagine this outcome when you hired me to catch your cheating fiancé? Olivia asked, leaning into Nathaniel's embrace. Not even close, he admitted, though I'm beginning to think some detours are worth taking. As sunset painted the gallery in golden light, Olivia reflected on the strange path that had led her here. She'd been hired to expose a betrayal and had instead uncovered a legacy, had set out to deliver justice and found healing instead. And somewhere along the way, the investigator and her client had discovered something neither was looking for. A second chance at trust, at truth, and perhaps at love. Some detours, she agreed, turning in his arms, lead exactly where we're meant to be.